Papers time now. Dipty's next to me. The paper's still talking about the French elections, particularly, of course, here in France, particularly Marine Le Pen, the far-right leader today, Dipty.
That's right, Stuart. There's a lot of focus on Marine Le Pen, but also her image and the image of her party. The right-wing paper L'Opinion newspaper says on its front page that the National Front Party no longer instills fear in French electors, as was the case before. Is that because she's become the quote-unquote normal candidate? Well, that's what Le Parisien newspaper is wondering on its front page. 15 years ago, when Marine Le Pen's father, Jean-Marie Le Pen, who was then candidate of the National Front Party, made it into the second round, he was overwhelmingly rejected in the final round of voting. It doesn't seem like it's going to be the case this time. Maybe that's because Marine Le Pen has successfully de-demonized herself, her image, but also that of her party. Le Parisien newspaper says the fact that she made it into the second round has barely raised an eyebrow, let alone mass street protests like we saw in 2002, all part of her successful attempt to de-demonize her image. It's almost as if it was all business as usual, the paper says.
OK, nothing lost for her yet, of course. Le Pen continues to campaign very, very hard, in fact, in that lead-up, continues to launch barbs against her rival Emmanuel Macron as well.
That's right, Stuart. She started yesterday, she started basically as soon as the first round of voting had ended, and she continues what's becoming a very aggressive second-round campaign. Marine Le Pen is pulling out all the big guns. That's what Huffington Post says, l'artillerie lourde, it says in this article. She's focusing now on appealing to those undecided supporters of Jean-Luc Mélenchon, the far-right leader. He, of course, has so far refused to back Emmanuel Macron, and Le Pen is hoping to coax his supporters into the polling stations and hopefully get some votes out of them. Now, Le Pen is also making changes in a bid to sort of normalize her campaign. That's really the theme, normalizing her campaign, that we're seeing across the French press today. She's announced that she's stepping down temporarily as president of the National Front Party to focus on her campaign. And she's also attacked Macron's economic proposals, calling them savage globalization policies and calling it a program that's all about total deregulation. Now, strangely, she also made comments saying that she was not an adversary of Europe. She was even a supporter of Europe. She is European. Really, this is strange words from her, despite coming as her whole electoral program is about yanking France out of Europe. But we get a clear idea of how she's trying to soften some of her harder policies in a bid to attract those undecided voters come May the 7th.
Now, Dipty's found a piece in Le Figaro. Now, this is reporting that Macron is looking beyond the runoff vote even to those all-important legislative elections when they come up just next month in June.
That's right. Those legislative elections are almost as important, or are just as important as the runoff vote, Stuart, because neither Le Pen nor Macron have major party backing yet. And essentially, if they don't get major party backing in those legislative elections, well, you could have a situation of a powerless leader. So Macron is now looking to, quote, recruit on the right. That's what Le Figaro, a right-leaning publication, says. He's redoubling his efforts to approach the heavyweights of the conservative conservative party in France, making new contacts, but it's all taking place behind closed doors. And on the left as well, he's trying to reach out to some of the socialist heavyweights. Manuel Valls, the former Macron's former boss, really has reached out to him, but no word on what Macron thinks about that yet.
OK, it's proven quite tricky for him to reach out to both the right and the left after they both, let's face it, received those crushing defeats on Sunday.
Well, you have both parties who are really licking their wounds after a crushing defeat, as you said, Stuart, on Sunday's first round. And Le Figaro reports that this whole strategy of being open to both sides is a bitter pill to swallow for those on the left. Macron, after all, was economy minister under a socialist government. For those on the left, there's this idea that he's seen as an elitist a candidate, whereas on the right, Macron is seen as a, quote, fake reformer, that his reforms don't go far enough. Let's end with a cartoon from Libération that really sums up Macron's predicament. In this cartoon from Willem, you see that both the right and left are struggling to support Macron, literally, really that they're sort of crushed under the weight of Macron, or it could be seen as him trampling both sides on his way as he walks or marches to the Élysée Palace.
OK. Or doesn't.
Or
we shall
doesn't.
see what happens over the next week and a half. All right, thanks a lot, Dipty. Laurent there with the French papers for us here on France 24.